Ancient Ireland had many kings who reigned over the land, from County Cork in the south to Ulster in the north, all vying for power and influence. One such King Lir lived in what is today County Meath, a king of a sizable kingdom. He had a large brood of children with his wife whom he loved dearly, far more than his crown. For many years he and his wife reigned over Meath in peace, bringing prosperity to their people. But like us all, Lir's wife eventually came to pass away, leaving him distraught over the loss. He did not eat. He did not sleep for fear he might dream of her in the other world, enjoy a blissful reunion only to be ripped apart by waking. His children, worried for their father's health, appealed to the Irish High King Conn of the 100 Battles to talk sense into him. Conn, ever attentive to his under-kings, sent a message to Lir saying, "It is best to be among friends during times of sadness or trouble. Come to Tara and let us dine together." Tara, Ireland's capital, was one of the oldest settlements on the island, dating back to the days of the Tuatha De Danann, the clan of elves and fairies who ruled over Ireland before the ancestors of the Irish conquered the country for their own. Lir, pushed by his children, eventually went to visit Conn, setting off to the capital in his war chariot, a common mode of transportation in Celtic society at the time. Upon arriving in Tara, Lir was met by Conn and brought into the royal palace where a great feast was prepared for the two men. The two friends talked for hours. Lir, reserved to his family up to this time, let out all of his emotions, coming to weep openly before the High King. Conn, moved, teared up himself, offering what comfort he could. Little did either know that a fairy woman, Niamh, listened outside the palace walls. Niamh, coming and seeking power in the mortal world, devised a plan to woo Lir for her own benefit. Taking the form of a human woman, she pretended to be a palace servant and walked inside holding a dish of freshly picked apples and berries. She strode right up to Lir and placed the dish in front of him, the two locking eyes. In this movement, the fairy cast an enchantment on the king, causing him to fall deeply in love with her. Lir said nothing at first, but once Niamh was out of the room, he told Conn he must have her. The High King, both surprised and delighted his friend was having such a turnaround, called Niamh back in, asking her if she would consent to Lir's affections. Of course the fairy woman agreed, and that night the two headed back to Meath, where they were married within a day. Niamh bore Lir 2 children, a son he named Aud and a daughter he named Fenella, whom the king doted on like his other children. But Niamh, growing concerned Lir's eldest son, Mathcaman, would inherit the kingship after his death and not Aud, devised a plan to be rid of all Lir's children from his previous marriage. On the pretext of taking them to visit maternal relatives in Ulster, Niamh took the children off away from their father's palace. None suspected anything out of the ordinary save Eva, Lir's eldest daughter, who grew suspicious of her stepmother after witnessing her talking in a strange language, not too long before this supposed trip. But for fear of being wrong, she kept quiet as they rode off down the road in their stepmother's Sess carriage, driven by her servant Connor. The carriage got only a few miles when Niamh called for it to stop, stepping out to discuss a private matter with the driver. "Take us to Loch Derravarrig in Westmeath," she ordered the man. "My children wish to see the waters." Connor, thinking nothing odd of this request, agreed, and quickly took the carriage to the loch where they set up camp for the night. That evening Niamh, wishing to finish her plan, told her stepchildren to go wash in the loch's water. They did, and no sooner had they entered the loch than the fairy woman cast her spell, turning all 8 of Lir's children into white swans. The transformation, however, did not rob the children of Lir of the power of human speech, and they cried out to their stepmother to help them, only coming to realize it was she herself who had turned them into animals. Connor, horrified, attempted to rescue them, but Niamh shot him down with her magic, killing the poor driver on the spot and casting his body adrift in the lake. Eva called out to Niamh asking why she would do this, to which the fairy woman replied, "You are nothing but vermin. Pests of a human woman, my son shall reign as he deserves. You shall dwell among the fish and birds of Ireland. Never again will you trouble me." With her plan complete, Niamh left the children of Lir to their fate and returned to Meath, lying to Lir and saying Connor, gone mad, killed his sons and daughters with his sword. To sell the deception, she even used her magic to produce a large gash across her right leg, claiming she received it fighting to protect the children. Lir, heartbroken, fell into a deep depression, and over the coming months he wasted away. Niamh, eager for the king to die, mentioned how Connor had murdered the children on the shores of Loch Derravarrig. Lir, wishing to see the spot, rode out alone to the waters. When his children saw him, they swam over, Eva calling out to get his attention. Lir, confused and believing these swans were fairy creatures, fled the loch, leaving his children alone again. Niamh, confident her plan was fulfilled, watched with pleasure while her husband died of grief 2 months later, and Aud took the kingship, believing she would hold power behind the throne. Yet, for all her planning, the fairy woman never foresaw her son refusing to heed her advice or allow her a place in his government. Aud dismissed her every word, and when she tried to assert herself, he locked her away. Growing frustrated by this, Niamh attempted to assassinate him with help from a servant she enchanted. But the man was killed before he even unsheathed his sword, and Niamh, her connections to him discovered, was brought before the court. In front of all present, Aud ordered his mother to be summarily beheaded, her body left for the carrion birds. Niamh used all her powers of persuasion to convince him to spare her, but the sentence held. Taken from the royal palace, Niamh was made to kneel and her head sliced off. The children of Lir spent 360 years swimming in the waters of Loch Derryveog, singing songs to passers-by until St. Patrick visited to the shores to hear their music himself. They swam up to him singing their songs, and over the course of a year the saint grew fond of them, visiting whenever he could, giving the siblings a sense of peace with his presence. Finally, after discovering how to break Niamh's spell, Patrick returned one day to free his friends. He called upon God and chanted a counterspell. One by one the children turned back into humans, their white swan feathers giving way to their natural blonde and brown hair. Their youthful faces soon turned aged, as Patrick and they knew would happen now the magic keeping them alive was no more. The children of Lir passed away while their beloved friend gave them last rites, burying the siblings together per their wishes alongside the loch they called home for so long.